Everyone is panicking already. It's May 21st. The window's not even open. The season is not done. But panic stations, press that red button and start to cry because it's all over before it's even begun. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to today's Arsenal News Show. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us on the Gooner Talk every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time, except maybe tomorrow. Got the email this morning, comes through, or yesterday, to be fair, I was on a day off, but telling me when the final press conference of the season. It's been a long season. It's been a difficult season. It's not always been the most enjoyable season, to be honest, either, at times. And I am quite glad that this season is coming to a close. But as you'll know, most press conferences, 10 a.m. sometimes, 1 p.m., sometimes 3 p.m. Can make it a little tricky getting home because of the rush hour traffic. Tomorrow, I can't tell you what specific the time is as of yet, but let's just say it's of a time where I cannot do the 8 a.m. show because it is a rather early one to finish the season. Set that alarm clock. So that's going to be fun. Good morning. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you do indeed drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. And also, of course, a massive thank you, your group of botanists, for all of the advice that you've been given. By the way, I will hopefully try and record something for you tomorrow, so you're not left without anything tomorrow. So hopefully there'll be a show going out still for you at 8 a.m., but it might be a different type of show than usual. But yeah, thank you so much for all the advice. On my day off yesterday, I did visit the garden centre and I discovered the main problem. I will say that a lot of you suggested some really good things. You suggested things that they suggested to me as well. But as somebody who is, 30 now and is the owner of one in their lifetime houseplant, I managed to do the one thing you shouldn't do. The one thing that I just assumed was fine. I don't know these things. I'm not an expert gardener. And I just went and grabbed any old compost, put it in a pot, put this new plant I've got in, repotted it when it got a bit bigger, put it in the corner of the room. Turns out you're not meant to use outside compost for inside plants because they don't stop the bugs from kind of laying their eggs and stuff. So I'm a complete amateur. So I spent about 2 hours of my day yesterday going to the garden centre, getting some indoor compost, washing off the plant of all of the usual dirt and stuff that I'd use, replanting the plant, and then I'll put it in the shed for a little bit so that all the stuff can die away for about a week or so. So yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. Anyway, thank you so much for everybody that. Oh, it's amazing how many people know so much about this stuff. I tell you what, it was very impressive indeed. Very, very impressive. So yeah, but outdoor. I know it sounds silly, Claire. I know that, but I just don't assume these things. I just thought plant, dirt, plant. Put the dirt in the pot. Put the plant in the pot. You got a plant. No, apparently not. Apparently, that's not how it works. Yeah, get a cactus, you spanner, says I. Be much easier. I'd probably end up stabbing myself on it, though, let's be honest. I'd probably end up. And I have killed a cactus. When I was a teacher, one of my students, when they were leaving at the end of year 11, as happens, it's a very common thing for a student to buy, the little gifts, the thank you gifts for the time that you've had, you've been teaching them for, as long as they're kind of like tiny little things. And I got given a little cactus, a little tiny shrub in a little nice pot for all the hard work of teaching them throughout the year. Yeah, that plant died in a month. That was gone, dead. I don't think they know that, but yeah, I killed it. Anyway, on to Arsenal, on to the season. And onto, of course, topics that you actually care about. If you've been skipping the last 4 minutes, I don't blame you. Let's jump over, though, to today's story, shall we? We begin with a roundup of the Premier League action with game week 37 in the Premier League now complete, now over, and is now, of course, On to the final match of the campaign. 2 games last night. We saw Crystal Palace beat Wolves 4-2. But the big game of yesterday was Manchester City against Bournemouth, in which Manchester City, courtesy of an amazing Omar Marmoush goal, won 3-1 to end Bournemouth's hopes of a European qualification spot, but give Man City everything they needed really to all but confirm their place in the Champions League next season. They're 3 points ahead of 7th place Nottingham Forest, but they are only 2 points ahead of Aston Villa. For Manchester City to not finish in the top 5, what would need to happen is Aston Villa would need to beat Manchester United, Chelsea would need to beat Nottingham Forest, Newcastle would need to beat Everton, and Manchester City would need to lose at Fulham. That is what would need to happen for Man City to fall out of the top 5. Had they have lost yesterday and been on 65 points, they would have been in a very perilous position. But it's a very intriguing scenario we find ourselves in right now. Nottingham Forest, of course, taking on Chelsea on the final day. That is effectively a top 5 finish playoff, is what that is. But even then, Nottingham Forest could beat Chelsea at Nottingham Forest, end on 68 points, and still miss out on the top 5. Because if Newcastle beat Everton and Aston Villa beat Man United, then Chelsea Chelsea and Aston Villa will go into that top 5. But Nottingham Forest will still miss out. So a lot of chaos going on for Arsenal. Arsenal's second place is not yet confirmed because they are 3 points ahead of Man City, but they are 8 goal difference ahead of them. It doesn't matter. Arsenal will finish second in the table. There's not enough goal difference to be close enough for that to change. It would take a humongous turnaround of goals for that scenario to happen. So Arsenal will, I'm happy to say this, will finish second. I've been getting prodded and poked by Sam Dean for a few weeks about Arsenal not finishing in the top 5. So it's quite nice to know that, yes, Arsenal will indeed finish second in the table. That is what we've come to expect. So there we go. Nico Williams is wanted by Real Madrid, according to Spanish media. And this could potentially open the door to a move for Rodrigo. Reports coming out of Spain suggesting that Real Madrid are keen on activating the €58 million release clause in the Athletic Club winger's contract. This is ironic, of course, because Barcelona was said to have been the team previously that were most interested in signing Nico Williams, but Rafinha's form and Lamine Yamal's form, of course, has kind of created a scenario where they don't really need to go after Nico Williams anymore. But Real Madrid apparently are keen to try and sign Nico Williams. But it doesn't make much sense. They've got, of course, Rodrigo, who plays, predominantly as a left winger, but has been playing the most of his games on the right because Vini Jr. is on the left. They've got Arda Güler, of course, who plays also on the right. So bringing in Nico Williams would, of course, force him to play potentially on the right wing rather than the left wing. And so, therefore, it's a kind of a question mark here again, as well as to bring in another left winger who would then play on the right, you would imagine. So, rather strange, but make it make sense. If this is indeed what happens and the Spanish media turns out to be correct, Arsenal could maybe use this situation to exploit and sign Rodrigo. So, yeah, let's see what happens on this front. But the question is, we have to ask, are we, that's meant to be a we there, are we, it should say, are we at panic stations? That's the question. It's May 21st. And the question is already, are Arsenal at panic stations? I'd say no. I don't think Arsenal are at panic stations. I don't think they're worrying too much right now. I don't think you need to worry too much right now. I think you're going to get a lot of people trying to worry you, obviously, because that's how it works. It's an easy way to create content. It's an easy way to grab your attention. It's an easy way to reel you in, to create discussion, to start bashing people, criticizing people. I don't know if you saw this. There was a video going around last night of a fan videoing themselves in the Emirates Stadium during the post-match stuff, and they waited. This is real, by the way. This is real. A real, genuine person with a brain did this. Got their phone out, So you can imagine them in the stadium, right? They've got their phone out. They're filming. They're zooming in on Mikel Arteta as he comes to do his speech at the end of the game. They've been told, of course, to stay in their seat because that's what's going to happen. That happens in the stadium. And so they're like, right, what can I do to... what can I do to really, really soil my own reputation? I'm going to get my phone out. I'm going to record Arteta and go, nope, not good enough. And then, do you know what the really funny thing is they obviously don't show their face. Why would you? You wouldn't want to be that person. Goodness me. Imagine if they were watching this right now. That'd be awful embarrassing. They film their feet walking out because they don't want to be like seen with their phone filming, doing it, because that'd be really embarrassing because they're about the only person in the entire ground doing what they're doing. But of course, the Arsenal online community sees that video, twists it, changes it, and I think there was a caption above the top saying, "Oh, things are starting to get bad in the Arsenal fan base." Oh, it's good. It's very good. Bear in mind, they're literally kind of the only person walking out in that video. I think actually the person to their right lets them out so they can carry on watching the speech. It was funny. It was very amusing, and it made me laugh quite a bit. Just the desperation there are. That tiny little, we talk about them all the time. The tiny little loud minority that exists that shout into the ether about Arsenal right now, and their online following. It was comical, and it completely exposed, I think, the nature of the scenario. Being in there myself, 99% of the people in that ground were there, clapping and chanting and giving what is obviously what the majority feels about the scenario right now. So, yeah. Are we at panic stations because Viktor Gyokeres is being linked to Manchester United? No, we're not at panic stations at all. Nothing's been decided. Nothing has been done yet. Nothing. It's all in hand. It's all in hand. And if it's not Gyokeres, it'll be someone else. Because Andrea Berta has been brought in to take Arsenal, as Charles Watts writes in his latest column for Caught Offside. Charles Watts has written, so it must be true, that Arsenal, of course, have brought Andrea Berta in to take Arsenal to another level when it comes to, these transfer decisions, when it comes to deciding what the next step to take is. And if Arsenal sign Gyokeres, I imagine it'll be because they led the queue on this front. If they don't, it's because they decided he's not the guy. The problem that we as fans, and I take my journalism hat off for a second, as fans, we can easily fall into the trap of reading everything on the surface and seeing that as the big picture when it's not. We see the tip of the iceberg. We don't see what is under the surface. We don't see everything else that happens. So, yeah. I struggle to say anything more on this topic. I struggle to give you any more insight, advice. You have to take what I've said here and run. Because if you don't, you are going to be ending up feeling pretty darn horrible about absolutely anything and nothing. So feel free to take the advice. If not, send yourself off into the world to flourish and see what happens. Right, let's go to part 2. Your questions and more right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of today's show. I'll be tackling some of your questions in the chat box. If you would like to jump in there, now is the time to do so. So chuck as many of them into the chat box as you can, and I'll do my absolute best to answer as many of them as possible over the next 20 minutes or so. So now is your time. Now is the time to jump those into the chat. We should scroll up a little bit just in case I missed some other ones. And it says, Tom, if United win the Europa League, then there is a good chance of him going there. He knows the manager won't hesitate to join them. Anthony must have Gyokeres' number. That's not a question, by the way. And he says, wonder if Vinny may leave to Saudi for a big money. And if they make such moves, it would be just weird. I think he'll stay at Athletic Club and join Barca in 1 or 2 years when Barca sell Rafinha. Soup says, Housen, Williams, who will they be after next? Isak, does anyone notice a pattern? The pattern is, Soup, that Arsenal are an elite club. Arsenal are amongst the biggest clubs in the world again. And we're there as a result, obviously, of the work that we've done over the last 5 years. And that means that the players that we want are also wanted by the biggest clubs in the world. That's just what happens. It's amazing to me. Like, we've wanted to be in this position for so long. We've wanted to be back amongst those that are, of course, fighting for the biggest and best trophies on the planet. And then we get here and everyone feels that we should have a free run to any potential signing. The players that we want are the players that every big club will be after. The fact that Arsenal managed to get in so early and get the Martin Zubimendi deal done is a huge coup and a massive, massive positive sign that Arsenal can be aggressive in this market, do deals quickly, and get in there ahead of some of the other big clubs. Because he is the best number 6 on the market for Arsenal to have potentially gone and got, and they've gone and got him. And Zubimendi is expected to join us during this summer window. So, yeah, look, I'm unreal, really, that we still find ourselves so entitled that we think that just getting to this stage means that, oh, yeah, Arsenal will get every player they want and there'll be no competition whatsoever. That's what happens when you reach this level. Claire says, how dare you shout down the conspiracy theories to I know. It's a problem. It's a real problem. I need to speak to somebody about it. Ridiculous says, Tom, any news regarding Xavi Simons? I assume he'd be on the market since Leipzig didn't qualify European competitions and he would be keen to test the market. Hopefully Arsenal will be in the mix. There's been nothing to suggest Arsenal are after him at the moment, but certainly on your point that he would leave, there is an expectation that, yes, Xavi Simons will be on the move this summer. So maybe Arsenal move for him. Maybe they won't. Maybe things will change. We will have to wait and see. Bakayo Martinelli, what a name, says, what do you think about Jurgen Strand Larsen from Wolves as a striker? He has 14 goals and 3 assists in 34 Premier League games, which I think is impressive for a struggling Wolves side. I'm not sure. While I appreciate his quality, I'm not sure he's the guy. I think that there are a higher level caliber of centre forward that Arsenal should be chasing. In that regard, let's say. Nifty Legend says, do you think we'll be making a move for Leroy Sané, given he's out of contract in the summer? I wonder if Bayern have had any suggestions. 29-year-old deal is currently expiring in June, and Bayern are hopeful of extending the German winger's contract after a productive season. That's the latest report from Sports Illustrated, which came out 2 days ago. So Bayern are hoping to keep hold of him. So I imagine he will probably stay unless he gets an interesting offer from elsewhere. Would Arsenal want him? I think they probably want to go for someone more permanent and long-term than Sané in a wide position, but could be proven wrong. We will see. Clint says, after seeing the Williams to Madrid links, does that mean Rodrigo is now a possibility? I think that's what we just discussed, Clint. Absolutely. I think that's definitely something that you could put 2 and 2 together, and it does make 4. So let's see. I did say that I feel it has a little bit of the Alexis Sanchez feel about it, and maybe it'll be that similar type of deal that we see Arsenal could get done. Arthur says, so Tom, if the right striker is not available, does that mean that we won't sign no one again? Well, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. I said to you that I feel as though that this is not a market for a centre forward still. We absolutely need to go and get one, but we might need to think about things differently. It might be that Arsenal put in that 40 million bid again for Ollie Watkins and see what Aston Villa say, and then in a later window go for that number 1 Declan Rice level striker. And instead, in this window, spend the big money on the wide forward rather than the centre forward, but still bringing in an important centre forward. So no, it's not about signing no one. That would be a mistake. But it's still about signing someone quality for the immediate term. But I think going big on a long-term wide player on top of that. That would probably be how I would go about it if indeed you can't get or you're not convinced about the centre forward that is there of what you feel would be the big money deal. Nesco says the upside of that Gyokeres to United scenario is Spurs being miserable. So is that maybe worth losing out on him? I guess that's a question. Would you rather Arsenal sign Gyokeres and Spurs win the Europa League, or Spurs lose, but Gyokeres ends up going to United and Arsenal striker scenario? Let's say we sign someone else, but we don't know who that's going to be. Interesting scenario to think about. Koja says, would you rather Mbeumo or Watkins? Watkins. Mainly because Mbeumo is predominantly a right winger. And not necessarily a centre forward, so I would rather Watkins. Raul says Watkins is a very smart move. 56 goals and assists in the last 2 Premier League seasons. 29 is not a bad age. 40 to 45 million is a good deal if it's possible. And I wouldn't go above 40 million, really. Maybe with add-ons of like 5, but I wouldn't go above 40 million for Watkins. I think Arsenal's offer in January was fair. I disagree with people who say that we should have gone for 60, 70 million for Watkins in January. I just don't. 40 million was the absolute maximum that I would have paid for Ollie Watkins during that January window. I thought it was a fair offer. They wanted more. Arsenal didn't want to pay more, and so they didn't go for him. They should have brought someone else in, but they didn't do the wrong thing in not going to. They didn't do the wrong thing by not going to 60 million. Lee says, Tom, can you see a big name player leaving the club this summer? Maybe. I mean, Trossard, his future, to my knowledge, is very much open. They could yet renew his contract. He could yet leave. So if there is to be a big name leaving, I think it's most likely to be somebody like Trossard that could go. Carl says, Amorim says, if you win the Europa League at Man United, I'm sorry, but it's not a big thing. You need to go for the Premier League and the Champions League. No fan should go into a meltdown if they beat our rivals. He's right. Like it's not an impressive competition anymore, the Europa League. As of this year, the Europa League became effectively the Conference League because no Champions League level club drops into that competition anymore. No club is getting to the final that isn't necessarily got their own significant issues. And let's be honest, the quality, the richness of the Premier League, there should be absolutely no way on earth that the Premier League should not win the Europa League every single season. With respect to the other teams in that competition, because of the way in which the Champions League works now, where it doesn't drop into the Europa League, that competition and the Conference League has become a joke. The Premier League should dominate both of those competitions every single season. The money, the budget, the power Premier League clubs have is far well and beyond any club that will be in those competitions. If we have a quick look at La Liga right now and the table as it stands, next season, Real Betis and Celta Vigo will be the two Spanish teams in the Europa League. If we go to the Bundesliga this season and their standings right now, Freiburg will be the German representation, potentially Mainz as well in the Europa League for next season. If we go to Liga and their Europa League, it will be Nice and maybe Lille that go into the Europa League for next season. And if we go to Serie A and their current standings, it will be Roma. And I'd argue that Roma are probably the best side of those that we've named so far. Maybe Lazio as well, who were already in the Europa League this season, but were knocked out in the semi-finals but in the quarterfinals, by Bodo Glimt. The Premier League should be dominating that competition. It should be absolutely dominating, as it has. Hence why the teams currently sat 16th and 17th in that competition are in the final. Next season, Aston Villa, maybe Forest. It's going to be Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest. I imagine it will be Nottingham Forest or Aston Villa, one of those two, that will be in the competition next season. Crystal Palace have an excellent side. They're going to get a lot of money, I think, for Eze in the summer. If not, they'll keep him. He's a top player. They've got a very good squad. I wouldn't put it beyond Crystal Palace getting to the late stages, maybe even the final, maybe even winning that competition. Crystal Palace have got a squad that I think would beat Real Betis. They've got a squad that I think would beat Nice, would beat Lille, would beat Freiburg. I think Crystal Palace would beat those teams. They've just beaten Manchester City in the final of the FA Cup. So the Europa League, I'm sorry. Yes, it's a European trophy. Arsenal, when they won the Cup Winners' Cup, beat Parma. Now, if you know your football history, you know what an achievement that was. It's just different. It's just so different these days in those second and third tier European competitions. They're just a bit of a circus, to be honest. They really are. So sure. Jared Blue says, never won a European trophy. Jared doesn't know his European history. Gooner says, Tom, I seriously just made a video about that UEL and the Conference League would be dominated by the Premier League clubs for the foreseeable future. YT Nat says, I said Europa isn't what it was and was told if it's easy, why haven't you won it? Football fans, I know, it's obviously... and that's what happens because obviously I'm talking about the Europa League as of this season. It's about a this season thing. Like the previous seasons, much harder to win. Arsenal lost in the final to Chelsea. Chelsea side that had spent how much money in that final? You know, you look at the previous winners of that competition, you got the likes of Atletico Madrid, Sevilla, during their absolute pomp, winning that competition. But now it's just not the same. Jose Mourinho has won it at Manchester United. So it's who finished second, I think, during that campaign. So it's one of those. It's one of those. Let's go to Gary says, you're right, Tom. I mean, look at how easy it was for United to beat Bilbao, and Bilbao have been the third best team in La Liga. United have been marginally better than the cannon fodder in the Premier League. Claire, exactly. Parma, when Arsenal beat Parma in the Cup Winners' Cup final, it was not expected that Arsenal would win that game. Parma were unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Jack says, I genuinely think there should be only a Champions League, and then the other European competition should be the Cup Winners' Cup. Would make the competition so much better. It's an interesting point, isn't it, Jack, that you'd have just kind of the cup winners, if you like, of those competitions in that tournament, and the Champions League just being the champions of their respective leagues. That's how it used to be. But yeah, it is what it is. Claire says, Tom, do you see UEFA changing the rules in terms of who plays in each competition once the Premier League takes a monopoly on the Europa League and the Conference League? I mean, if Premier League clubs do generate like a consistent winning culture in those competitions, maybe they'll change it, but it's very, very difficult to kind of talk about it. So yeah. That is what it is. Parasite says, hi Tom, nothing on Mark Bonnick. Just on this topic, of course, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen the reports around, thank you for asking the question. And I'm aware of obviously that scenario, but given the legal nature of that situation and the sensitive political context, I'm not really that well informed enough to give a view, particularly because of ongoing legal proceedings. So I appreciate the question, but I'm not going to be tackling that topic because of the ongoing political and legal nature of that. But thank you for asking. Mook says, Tom frantically trying to defend Arteta this season, but it has been a sham because of one man. Yeah, one man. I think he was taking a hammer to people's hamstrings throughout the season, Arteta. Cass says, if we were to sign Gyokeres, how many goal contributions do you think he will make in his first season with the better quality passes from Saka, Odegaard, Rice, etc.? It's an interesting one, and it's very hard to predict. It's very hard to predict because we don't ultimately know, Cass, how he's going to transition to the Premier League. We don't know what type of impact he's going to have. It's very difficult to know that scenario. Very difficult to know how it's going to happen. But you would hope that, I mean, Havertz this season has got 9 Premier League goals up until February. Who people suggest, isn't naturally a centre forward. I think he was on for a potentially 20 goal plus season overall. So I would hope that you would look at Gyokeres as more of a natural centre forward beyond for a 30 goal plus season across all competitions with Arsenal. 20 Premier League goals. That's what you would hope for, but there is very little guarantee of that would happen. Matt says, would you look at someone like Marcin Bulka as an alternative to Juan Garcia if you can't sign him? I mean, maybe. Obviously, Bulka's kind of profile has grown quite considerably after his heroics against PSG for Nice. He had an amazing game, probably the best game he's ever played for Nice in that match against PSG. But it wouldn't necessarily be a terrible suggestion. But Arsenal need to find somebody that I think has good distribution rather than just good shot stopping. They need to have, the ability to see Raya out, but also have a keeper that can distribute the ball very, very well also. And I'm not sure that Bulka has that in his locker. Irving says, I'm shocked that we're still talking about Hout Watkins. That's like saying that we want a backup for Havertz. Well, this is the scenario though, Irving, because this summer transfer window, there is, like, for me, as I've talked about, I don't know how much better Gyokeres is than Havertz. I don't know how much better Sesko is than Havertz. I don't know how much better these players are than what we've already got. And I don't know if there's going to be a centre forward maybe next season that is the Declan Rice level centre forward that we can go and get. Because we can't get Isak right now. That's just not possible. Is Hugo Ekitike a better option? Is that somebody that we should be going for? Watkins gives you goals. He gives you an immediate impact. He gives you a guarantee. So if Arsenal don't want to go down the route of spending huge money on a centre forward this summer because they're not convinced by the options that are out there right now, and instead are minded to instead go and look elsewhere in the wide areas to add that more guarantee, I think that's probably the better route, the better pathway to go down. Lawrence says, good morning, Tom. I'm Lawrence Johnny from Liberia and a regular follower of your show. Thank you, Lawrence. And I hope things are well for you. Amberly says, that's more than a bit harsh on Watkins. I'd say he's not a scrub. Yeah, he's definitely not a scrub. It's amazing how people talk about things so dismissively, isn't it? Just because he's not maybe the player that you want, he's a scrub. Fans are funny. He's got 16 Premier League goals this season and 8 assists in what was potentially not his best campaign last season, which is, by the way, still plenty more than a lot of other players in the Premier League for his position. In 23-24, let's have a quick look. He got 19 goals and 15 assists. In 22-23, he got 15 goals and 6 assists. Like, he's very consistently giving a lot of goal contributions. I don't think it would be a terrible move for Arsenal. I'm far from that. I think it would be a good signing in the short term, but I think we'd have to go big on the wide player, that's for sure. Game Shot says, we missed out on Kvaratskhelia, Marmoush, Isak ducked a bullet on Mudryk. Russian roulette on the environment issue, expensive at the time, well worth the price. I'm getting to Ekatike and Sesko, but running out of reasons, maybe. Charlie says, Isak, I rate Isak, but he has some serious groin injury issues. I believe he's also had a few injuries at Real Sociedad. He did a little bit, not loads. I think it was a bit overblown, but yeah, there are injury issues, and that does, I think, make the investment not necessarily viable. Antonio says, Tom, I see what some Arsenal fans saying Waneri could be better than Yamal if Arteta gives him more game time, like Ethan, but Yamal is different. He's already the best player in the world. Yeah, you can't compare those two. You can't compare Waneri and Yamal. It's just not sensible. Maximus says, Tom, how on earth did you manage to kill a cactus? They are meant to survive in the harshest of environments. That's how strict of a teacher I was. Rich says, Tom, by waiting to be sure about a striker, don't we risk being priced out? Any guaranteed fix would cost 100 million plus. Don't we have to pay the big money or risk? Yeah, but what I'm saying is, Rich, is that I don't think there is a 100 million player that is worth 100 million for Arsenal in the market. Like when we signed Declan Rice, he was a 100 million pound player and has proven to be a 100 million pound player. And all those people that doubted Arsenal spend that money have been proven very, very, very embarrassingly wrong. When it comes to a centre forward, I'm well up for spending 100 million on a centre forward. I'd love Arsenal to spend 100 million on a centre forward, but I don't think that player's there. I don't think there is that Declan Rice player there because Isak is not a 100 million pound player. He's going to cost you way over that. And even if you do go for Isak, he doesn't have the attendance reliability, the consistency of appearances to be able to guarantee on that investment being returned. And that's definitely a huge, huge problem. But Gyokeres is not a 100 million pound player because there's far too many unknown variables with him. Far, far, far too many unknown variables with Gyokeres. And that's not his fault. He can only beat what's in front of him. He can only do what he has done. In fact, he's done more than what he could do with us. It's not me saying that it wouldn't work. It's not a signing that we should do. All I'm pointing out is that, in my mind, Arsenal need to find that 100 million pound centre forward. And I don't think that player is there right now. I don't think that player is there right now. I think there are some good options. I'm just not convinced there are the options on the market for Arsenal right now. And that's not a terrible thing. That's not a terrible thing. Irving says, we don't need a 100 million pound striker. We just need a striker. We don't have one. We do. We do have a very good centre forward. Kai Havertz is a very good centre forward option for us. The numbers don't lie. But he's not enough on his own. And if we can get better, we should try and get better than him. So that's where I'm at on it. Answers, I would actually rather get Mateta over Watkins. I haven't got too much of a gripe with that. Jean-Philippe Mateta has been excellent. He's slightly younger than Watkins. He's only got a couple less goals than Watkins in the Premier League this season. He's now won an FA Cup. I don't the gap between Watkins and Mateta. I don't think is that significant at all. Ant says Sesko is the only one who has the potential to be a £100 million player, so we could get him. I'm not. I don't know. I'm 50-50 on them. I've been slightly more Sesko, but I'm still pretty 50-50. If I was to pick between the two, as I've said and I've maintained over a long period of time, I would lean more towards Sesko. But I'm pretty 50-50 on those two, Gyokeres and Sesko. I'm just not entirely convinced. You know, and Raditya says, remember all, this is just opinions. We may agree, we may disagree. If you think Sesko and Ekatike will be the next coming of Thierry Henry, then you need to share your tea leaves with the club. Exactly. You know, we don't know. We just don't know. Paul says, we have Jesus, but he's long-term injured. We need a goal scoring forward, whoever that is. Absolutely. Absolutely. John says, Havertz is a top centre forward. We're willing to do this again, are we? Next season, FC. I've just said, I can only say things so many times, John, and I know it's really easy to spew into a keyboard and write something that you think's funny, but, you know, as pointed out several times, he is a very good centre forward. He's just not the centre forward. You know, the disparagement on a player of Havertz's level is embarrassing, more so for the people that disparage him than it is those that appreciate him. But when it comes to Arsenal and in the future, Arsenal need to go and get better. There's nothing wrong in saying that Havertz is a good player, but also saying he is not the player. There's nothing wrong in saying that. What would be wrong is saying that he's bad. That would be what's wrong, because categorically there is so much evidence to the contrary of that. Antonio, yes, I would take Rodrigo. Jonathan David on a free. It is interesting, isn't it, how so far there really hasn't been too much at all on the noise around Jonathan David. It's been very quiet. He's got 16 goals, 5 assists in Liga. He got 9 goals and 4 assists in the Champions League, which was excellent. I mean, what a return in the Champions League that is. Let me just quick check. That sounds ridiculous. Is that true? No, that's not. Oh, because it was qualifying as well. So he got 7 goals and 2 assists in 10 Champions League games. What a run. What a return in the Champions League for Jonathan David. Did he score multiple? No, he scored 1 against Real Madrid in a 1-0 win. Scored twice against Atletico Madrid. Scored once against Juve. Scored against Liverpool. Scored against Feyenoord. Scored against Borussia Dortmund. These are not mug teams. It's interesting how quiet it is on Jonathan David. Tipsy says Jonathan David is not good enough for our level. If he's not good enough for our level, how is it he scores against Real Madrid in a win? Twice against Atletico, once against Juve, once against Liverpool, once against Dortmund. But he's not good enough. Did he score against PSG this season? Got an assist against PSG in the second game that they faced each other. What is it? What is it about him that means he's not good enough? Because he scored against some pretty big teams there. You know? So, and he's free. He'll be a free transfer. But he says Martinelli scored against Madrid. True. And Liverpool as well. But Martinelli's a good player. He's, you know, I'd like us to get better, but he's a good player. Philly says Ray and Cherky, Jonathan Davids, Zubimendi, Gyokeres, a good left winger. If we could get a player like Eze or Rodrigo as the left-sided player, that would be great. Matthew says it's quiet because he's already going to Napoli. I guess that would fit quite well, wouldn't it? He would be a natural replacement, another Lille centre forward going to Napoli. Maybe that's the way forwards. Lawrence has 45 goals and assists in a season. I mean, those players, Premier League level, 45 goals and assists in a season. If that's what we want Arsenal to have, I mean, fair. Like that's just very hard to find. How many of those players? I mean, Mohamed Salah got 56 goals and assists in his, what I think many would look at as his best season for Liverpool. It's been his best season. Probably will win the Ballon d'Or. I'd certainly have would vote for Mohamed Salah as my Ballon d'Or winner for 2025. So, I mean, yeah. How many of those players exist that can do that in the Premier League? How many did Haaland get this season? for Manchester City? Did he get 45 goals and assists? Maybe. I'm trying to find the numbers for you. 30. Well, he got 3 assists all season. Is it only 3 assists? That seems nuts, doesn't it? Only 3 assists. Erling Haaland. I know he missed a little bit of the end of the campaign, I guess, so you could argue that point. But he got 30 goals and 4 assists, and he played 43 games. So, and he missed 8 Premier League matches. 45. If 45 goals and assists is the expectation, that's an incredible player. You're looking at trying to sign like an elite level player. And is that player out there? I don't know. I genuinely don't know if they are out there. A lot of people say Osimhen should be the player that we go for because he's obviously had a very good season with Galatasaray while basically putting himself into the shop window as much as he can. In one season with Napoli, he got over 20 league goals. He scored 31 in their league-winning campaign. But even Osimhen in a season for Galatasaray has got 44 goals and assists during this campaign. So he's not reached 45 goals and assists if that's the margin. Last season he got 21 goals and assists. The season before that, he too suffers with injury issues, by the way. The season before that he got 36 in his best season for Napoli. 36 goals and assists, of course, all comps. The season before that he got 24. So this idea of 45 goals and assists, my goodness gracious me. When Gyokeres is doing that in Portugal, he's got, 106 or something in 98 games, which is incredible, but with Sporting. So, yeah, I think people's expectations are kind of crazy. Hassan says, out of Williams, Gordon, Eze, Simmons, Gnabry, Sane, Kudus, Gittins, Matoma, Semenyo, Rodrigo, Cherky, and Buemo, which 2 would you go for? Eze and Rodrigo, I would go for. They would be the 2 I would pick. Ant says, Osimhen's also asking for a lot of money. Yes, he is. It would probably be the highest paid player in the team if he was to join. Anyway, that, I think, is going to bring us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Hopefully, will be a show for you tomorrow morning, but Mikel Arteta does have a very early press conference, so unfortunately, no guarantees on that front. Hopefully, you'll have one. And if not, there will, of course, be one on Friday, as we will talk about Mikel Arteta's press conference ahead of the final match of the Premier League weekend. And the final match of the season before we go again, trying to take down the league next season. Netflix FC. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, people. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.